All right, we do have breaking news. This situation we've been monitoring with these 10 U.S. sailors. They have now been released by Iran. The question is, why were they there? What does it mean? There was a big range of opinion going into the President's State of the Union address last night. He did not, however, mention it at all during the speech. So what was the takeaway? And where are we this morning? Let's talk about it with Ohio Republican Congressman, Chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Congressman Jim Jordan. Congressman, good to have you with us. Let's talk about the breaking news. That matters most. They have been released. This situation was taken in a lot of different directions, even when we didn't have the facts. You had a lot of people saying this is another bit of proof that Iran doesn't respect President Obama, doesn't respect the United States. You even had big shot commentators, Joe Scarborough, saying, enjoy this, Iran, because in a few hundred days, you won't have the president to push around anymore. And then it turns out they probably went into the wrong water space. Iran not only released them quickly, but also gave them their boats back, which under international law, they may not even have had to. What do you think about this situation and how it was made out?
I thought it was interesting the president didn't even mention it in the speech last night when he was going through what he deemed his foreign policy success story of his 7 years in office. I think the best news is they're released and they're coming back.
But the idea of making it an act of Iranian aggression, that's what seemed to be the spin. And now it doesn't seem to be that at all.
Well, look, here's what I do know. I do think the respect for the United States is not at the level it should be around the world. When the president went through some of his, quote, foreign policy success stories last night, he mentioned Benghazi, for goodness sake. He mentioned the fact, I mean, to bring up, I'm on the Benghazi committee, to bring that up as the fact that Katala sits in jail, that's somehow a success when Libya was your baby. This was supposed to be your foreign policy success story, Secretary Clinton's foreign policy success story. And repeated requests for additional security, those requests denied, what they had reduced, what took place that day, the tragedy where 4 Americans were killed, and then the false information that was put out by the administration after the fact, somehow saying this was blamed on a video, the protests spontaneously caused by a video.
You don't buy that there were competing theories within the Intelligence Committee, and that's why you had two versions of it?
I buy the facts. I buy what Secretary Clinton told her daughter that night when she said, we know it was an al-Qaeda attack. I buy what she told the Egyptian Prime Minister. She said, we know. Not we speculate, not we think. She said, we know it was a terrorist attack, not anything to do with the video. That's her words.
Right,
so
but you don't think the explanation for her words is the timeline of when she learned things? You don't buy that?
No, I buy the facts. And the facts, she's told one story to the American people, an entirely different story to her family and to the Egyptian Prime Minister and to the President of Libya. So for the president to cite, I thought that was like, this just defies logic for him to say Benghazi is somehow a success story.
And that was reflected in what we didn't see last night. You didn't see both sides of the aisle standing up for very much. One of the issues where it didn't come out, it's close to home for you, was when he talked about now the country has secured the right for us to marry whom we love. A lot of quiet on his left, the right side of the aisle, the GOP. You invited Kim Davis last night, the clerk from Kentucky. Why? What did you want people to know about that?
Well, I mean, frankly, I found out yesterday, our office was approached by the Family Research Council. I learned yesterday that we were asked to provide tickets for Mrs. Davis's family. We did that, and Kim Davis was the
because.
Yeah, I mean, they asked, and we had a ticket available, so we did that. Look, everyone
wasn't just about having a ticket available, though, right? I mean, obviously, you knew having Kim Davis would be a statement. What is that statement?
Well, we weren't trying to make a statement. We were trying to provide a ticket to some friends of us at the Family Research Council. But yeah, everyone knows my position. Marriage should be what it's always been. I've never changed on that, and never will. You know, I think that has served Western culture well, and Kim Davis, but last night was not about that. Last night was about the failed policies of this president. You know, he talked about 7 years of progress. 7 years of progress. We got 94 million people who are out of work. We got 48 million people on food stamps, and we got a healthcare system that has driven up the cost of deductibles, premium, and everything they told us about healthcare when they marketed this to the American people 6 years ago has turned out to be inaccurate. Like your plan, you keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Website's going to work. Website secure. Premiums are going to go down. Premiums are going to go down an average of $2,500. Emergency room visits are going to go down. Every one of those statements they used to sell this to the American people has turned out to be inaccurate.
But you do have 18 million people more covered. There is good data that comes
most of
back
those
about
people
it.
are probably
And
most of those people are on Medicaid. They're not in some kind of insurance plan. And if they are, it's an insurance plan that's driven up the cost of their deductible, driven up the cost of their premium.
The problems are obvious, and you outline them well, as do many people on your side of the party and the other. The question is, what better plan do you have?
Yes.
When you talk about the economy, you got a lot of people
Chris.
in distress, but you got to compare it to 2008 when he got in there.
And this year should be a year, and Speaker Ryan's talked about this, where we lay out the difference between where Obama and Clinton want to take the country, continue to take the country, and where we Republicans and conservatives want to take the country. So we should have our plan that says, here's how we're going to reform the tax code, throw out the tax code that everyone knows is broken. We should have our plan that says, here is how we're going to do health care that empowers you and not empowers this town, not empowers Washington and bureaucrats in this town. I think this is probably the most important. We should reform the welfare system and incentivize work and focus on work. That's fair to tax-paying families, and more importantly, it's fair to those families, will help those families who are stuck in our welfare system. So that's what we should do. And then the final thing I would say that we should do as a party is continue to hold people accountable in positions of public trust who do things wrong. And the best example is John Koskin at the IRS, where the IRS systematically targeted Americans' most cherished liberty, their First Amendment free speech rights, when they had their targeting of conservative groups around this country. And Mr. Koskin was the commissioner when 700 backup tapes were destroyed, 24,000 documents, and they were destroyed with preservation orders in place and subpoenas in place.
That is an interesting issue. There's a lot of accountability to go around when you talk about Washington, D.C., and that's why we're here. Congressman, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate you taking the opportunity.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right. There's a lot of news coming out of the State of the Union this morning. We're going to give it all to you right now, including the latest on those sailors in Iran. Let's get to it.